Coming up in this episode of iCantCU, I'll talk about an agency that sends out not fully accessible emails that goes to disabled people. And of course, blind people are sometimes considered disabled. I'll also talk about a fantasy football update where the app is very accessible. And you know, if I'm talking about fantasy football this late in the NFL season, I've got good news. Stick with me.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the iCantCU podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of iCantCU, your window into a world where blindness doesn't dictate ability. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. Thank you so much for joining me, and welcome inside Studio B. There's no less junk in here from last week, but there's no more either. So that's good. So I do have a couple of things to touch on, and I'm going to start off with the fantasy football because there's a correlation between the fantasy football and the email that I talked about in the intro. I was in I almost put up two fingers. I was in 3 fantasy football leagues. The most important one to me is the All Blind League. Sadly, I didn't win that one. If you go back a few years, you can watch our mini documentary that Yahoo did on us at iCantCU.com/football. Sadly, I didn't win that one, but congrats to my birthday brother, Nick, who won yet another championship in that league. However, I was in 2 other leagues where I did win the championships in each one. And as Meatloaf once said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad for me. I was very happy. Ziggy FC, which was my team name in the NFB National Association of Blind Students fundraising league, I ended up winning that one. And that one got a little hairy at the end. The other league that I'm in, which was a little more impressive, but I came on strong towards the end of the season because of Bryce Young, and I ended up winning that league. That is called the Tech Mobile League, and it's a keeper league. So I inherited the team. Joe Burrow is the quarterback, so that's partially how I got there. And like I said, Bryce Young coming on at the end. I won that championship, and I beat my friend Brian, who, had he played one other guy instead of somebody that he played, he would have won. But he didn't, so I won. Very exciting. I mention this because Yahoo is not anywhere near a company that serves just disabled folks. They serve all folks. Their app is very accessible. It's not 100%. It is rare for an app or a website to be fully accessible. There's always something. There's always some glitch, maybe something that's not labeled, whatever it might be. But here's an app that wants to help as many folks as they can play fantasy sports. And it's outstanding. Over the last month or so, I have been pushing really, really hard to migrate my website, iCantCU.com, away from its current host. And I should preface this by saying Digital Graphics Design hosts my site, but I buy and resell the hosting. So I'm not the only one on the server. I have moved most of my clients to a different server. I want to move iCantCU there and the remaining sites that I have from HostGator to the new hosting. The issue has been emails. And I'm really concerned that when I migrate, I'm going to lose some of the emails. And don't get me wrong, I have over 13,000 that are unread. So some of them aren't that important, but yet they're important enough to not get rid of. So I've been going through the various email accounts that I have on the iCantCU domain. Some I set up a while ago, and believe me, I've had the domain 19 years now, or close to 19 years. Some of the emails I set up, one is called eat@iCantCU.com. Why did I set that up? So I would have one place to go to put any kind of restaurant coupons and discounts in. When I would sign up for Cheesecake Factory, I used that email address. When I signed up for other restaurants, I used that email address. So I wouldn't have all that email coming into my main email address on that domain. Well, I had forgotten about it. And currently, I think there's only two restaurants that are sending email to that account. I'm going to get rid of it. It doesn't matter. It was just an easy way to have all the restaurants. So when we were going out to eat, I could quickly look into that inbox to see if there were any coupons or discounts. I don't know that I ever used it, and we've since switched to doing our food discounts and newsletters and whatnot go to a Gmail account that we set up a long time ago. And all of our household things go to a Gmail account that was originally for the house that we lived in media. I came across another inbox that I had forgotten that I even set up, and I hadn't checked it in probably a decade, maybe not quite a decade. The email address is hire-Dave or David, I don't remember, at iCantCU.com. I had signed up for that when I was working with the Bureau of Blindness and Visual Services to have newsletters and job opportunities come in. And again, so it wouldn't clutter up the main inbox. And when I decided not to really push for a job, I kind of just let it go. I forgot about it. Stopped working. My BBVS stuff kind of went away. And I let it go. I forgot all about it. Well, I was going through down the list of all the emails the other day, and there were some that I could get rid of. There's one that I evidently used for YouTube, but I don't know for which YouTube account, so I can't get rid of it because I don't know which one it's for. I don't think it's for the one that this program is on. It's one of the other ones. I don't know which one, though. When I went into hire-David at iCantCU.com, recently, and when I say recently, over the last few years, there was only email from one organization, something called Ability Link. And I'm looking at these different jobs and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And I'm using my screen reader. I'm using VoiceOver on my Mac to read it to me. And I'm also scrolling down and I notice, because I do, like I've mentioned, have a little bit of sight, I notice there's a QR code in the email. And as I'm going down bit by bit using, I didn't read the whole thing at once. I was just kind of going line by line type of reading. It skips over that whole section. So evidently it's a graphic. Besides the QR code, I can see that there's writing in there. So whatever that QR code leads you to, I have no idea. I thought, wow, this is weird. Here's an organization that serves the disabled community. Blindness is considered a disability. Over 70% of blind folks are either unemployed or underemployed because of their disability. Here's an organization, maybe even an agency. I don't know if they're a state agency, just a nonprofit. I don't know. I didn't look that far into it. And when I signed up for it, back in 2016, 2015, whenever it was, maybe I knew, but I don't know now. I don't remember. And it doesn't matter 100% because I'm not going to use it, but I found it incredible that they are serving the disabled community, but they are underserving the blind community. Because how would a blind person know that that QR code is there? And I started to think that. What would somebody who's blind do with this information? And again, above the QR code, there were links to various jobs. And the links were readable. They weren't buttons. It was just mentioned the job title, and it was a hyperlink that you could go to the site. And I didn't go to the site to see if the site was accessible, which maybe I should have done and maybe I'll do for next time. I then thought to myself, I got to find out what the text is around the QR code. It was late, so everybody in the house was sleeping. I couldn't ask anybody. So I set up the account on my phone to see if that would read it any better. At first, I was going to forward it to another email, but sometimes when you forward an email, not all the graphics work and everything else. So I thought the only way to really do this is to put the account on my phone. And once I get rid of this inbox, once I get rid of this email account, I'll just take it off my phone. It doesn't matter. When I pulled it up on my phone after a few minutes of having some having some issues getting it on my phone because I didn't remember the password to the account. Again, it was 8 or 10 years ago I set up this email account. I noticed that it also skipped over the graphic that had the QR code. But when I took my finger and dragged it around the QR code, it didn't tell me that the code was there, but it was reading the various words that were there. Now, it was reading one at a time. So once that I knew that, if I were really interested, I could have read by dragging my finger slowly across the words. And again, on my phone, I couldn't see the words. I knew they were there. I could see blobs, and I knew they were there. I was just dumbfounded by this organization and not having something that a blind person could fully use. Are they interested in helping blind people? I don't know. I'm guessing they are. I don't know. And I thought, well, should I call them and invite them on and have them tell me what they're thinking? Why is this graphic in here? Again, the graphic, I don't think the graphic even said image. I just don't think it said anything. I don't think it was labeled at all. So it didn't have alt text. And I didn't look to see, actually, I did look to see if it was sent by, if they used MailChimp or ConvertKit, which I think is now just called Kit, or any of the other email providers, Constant Contact. All of them are great. I shouldn't say all of them. Most of them are great with being able to add alt text to the graphics. The NFB uses MailChimp, and it's so awesome to be able to put what the graphics are. It's just awesome. And that's usually a big issue when I get an email. American Express is one that I get deals, that I get extra points or I get cash back. Jane just bought some stuff at Levi's. There was I don't remember what the exact coupon was, 35 off of 175 or something like that. Doesn't take many pairs of Levi's anymore to get to 175. She got her cart to 186 and then used the coupon, so it took a nice chunk off, and she was happy about that. But that email that American Express sends out, I think they use iframes, and I can't see them. And on the phone, I can use my finger to touch. Fortunately, the way they do it, they put the logo of the organization, of the business, and then they have it in, let's say it's Staples. They might have the logo, and then beneath the logo, it'll say staples.com double points or something like that. I can't read the fine print because what I'll usually do is see what the deals are, and then I'll forward it to Jane and Liz, and I'll say, any of these look interesting to you guys? And they'll say yes or no, and we'll move on. If Liz thinks they look interesting, she'll go into Amex and add the deal to our card. And then if we buy from that, whatever the company is or whatever the website is, we'll get that discount. And it gets a little frustrating to me that it's like that. And I've told you in the past about issues I've had with American Express where they won't talk to me because I couldn't read there's a code on the back of the card. Now, Amex uses a 4-digit code on the front of the card when you are buying something and they need that, usually on Visa, MasterCard, and I think Discover, there's a 3-digit code and it's usually on the back. Amex has it right on the front of the card that with Seeing AI or Be My Eyes, it can read it. And of course, after you use the card for a while, you memorize it and it doesn't matter. But this code on the back is very tiny, and it's not readable by Seeing AI. And at one point, about a year ago, I came very close to canceling my American Express because they weren't allowing me in because I couldn't read that code. And I said, you have to have another way in. And again, I talked about it. I don't remember what episode it was. Like I said, it was about a year ago. Finally, we worked it out. And American Express is my card of choice. It's been my card of choice for before Liz and I got married, and we'll be married 35 years in June. So this company, not American Express, Ability Link, wants to be the place that a disabled job seeker goes to find a job. And that's great, except it's leaving out the blind folks. They don't put all their jobs with those links that I mentioned above where the QR code was. I'm guessing that QR code takes you to more jobs. I don't know, though. I didn't follow it. And again, I was just stunned. And as I was checking and I'm still doing fantasy sports. I have a basketball team called Ziggalicious. My hockey team is called Moongate Slapshot. That is Ziggy's official name. Moongate is the breeder. And we used Slapshot because our previous golden retriever from when the kids were little was called Zamboni. And the breeder thought, oh, well, this is a hockey reference. Why not just pair the two things together? And I said, sure, why not? So you have Yahoo not catering to the disabled community, catering to all sports fans and folks that like to play fantasy sports. Here you have, on the other hand, you have this company, Ability Link, that their main goal is to help disabled folks find jobs. And I may follow up as time goes on. I have a lot of stuff going on coming up, which I'll talk about in a second. But it's something that I would love to get somebody from the organization on and ask them their thinking behind doing this the way they did it, with doing the QR code. And most folks, I shouldn't say most folks, a lot of folks go to their email on their phone. I know some people, they don't even use a computer, they just use their phone. It's a lot easier using VoiceOver on your phone than it is on a Mac. You don't really have to do finger gymnastics, although I got to tell you, with the way my hands are, it's tough to use the rotor. I'm not going to lie. But it's a lot easier to use your phone for the email. Why is there a QR code there? Because you're already on, it should just be a link. Who uses the QR code? If you pull it up on your computer, do you then have to pull out your phone to use the QR code? It wasn't linked. That image was not linked to anything because I thought that was weird that it was like that. So again, I may follow up with them and just to get a better idea of what their thinking is. Why is this not, okay, granted, if you have a paraplegic who's looking for work, okay, this works for them because they can see the screen and they can see the QR code if they want, they can use it. But a blind person cannot use it. They don't know that, a totally blind person would not know that code was there. So that's what I have for you this week. Now, a couple of things. I mentioned I have a lot going on, and coming up this week on Wednesday, I'll be flying to Orlando for PodFest. Now, I haven't been there since 2020, right before the world shut down. It was literally right before the world shut down. I was in the Orlando airport on the 8th of March. And of course, later that week, everything stopped. I guess since have moved it to January. The last few years, it's been in January. The problem is it's been the last week of January. Something happened this year with the hotel, and they had to bump it to a different hotel and a different week, this coming week, right after this episode drops. And because of that, I'm able to go. Had it been a normal year, I wouldn't be going because it would have been the last week of January, and the first week of February is Washington Seminar. In most years, if I went to a PodFest, I'd get off a plane, come at the end of PodFest on a Sunday, and then on Monday head back out to Washington. This year, I'll be acting as the president of the NFB of PA because our president, Lynn Heitz, will be traveling out west, and she can't make it to Washington Seminar. There is a meeting on Monday morning for the presidents and the legislative directors of the organizations, of the affiliates. So I couldn't go down on Monday. I'd have to get up before I went to sleep on Monday morning. So I'm going down on Sunday afternoon. So this year, there's just no way I would have been able to go. And most years, Liz would kill me one way or the other if I went to PodFest Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, flew home Sunday, then on Monday, went back out to Washington. So I'm excited because like I said, I haven't been to PodFest since 2020, March of 2020, and I'm looking forward to it. More so this year because when I went to Podcast Movement in Washington over the summer, I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot of different things there. But I realized that PodFest, when I was there, was more of a community of independent podcasters. Podcast Movement had people from ABC and PBS and things like that. NPR, maybe not PBS, NPR, and larger organizations like that. I mean, there were independent folks there too, but and maybe things will be different at PodFest. I'll see, but I'm looking forward to going to PodFest. So that's this week. Next week, Jane is buying her apartment. I'll go to New York next Friday, the 24th. And then the following week, I will go, the following week, I won't go anywhere. Then after that, February 2nd, I'll be on a train down to Washington. So a lot going on. I'm looking forward to all that. And again, I like to travel. I prefer to be jumping on a plane with Liz and going to Spain, France, Italy, somewhere along the Mediterranean. Maybe that'll happen. It just doesn't look likely. So I do want to mention, speaking of traveling, I do want to mention White Canes Connect, the other show that I'm a part of. I actually have one other show to talk about. White Canes Connect episode 119 and 120 are taken from the NFBFPA State Convention in Erie. 119 has President Lynn Heitz giving her presidential report or her presidential address to the convention goers. Episode 120, I mentioned the Bureau of Blindness and Visual Services, BBVS, a couple of minutes ago, has the BBVS director, Dawn Sokol, talking about the agency and what's going on within the agency. That's the agency that runs the BEP program. And I guess I shouldn't say the BEP program because it's Business Enterprise Program. So when I say BEP program, I'm saying program twice. So the ones that run the Business Enterprise Program, how's that? She gave a nice report and then took some questions at the end. And it was very well received and she did a great job. And I've had some, I don't want to say issues with her, but it has been, to me, more adversarial than when you're working with someone, because the program, the Business Enterprise Program, is still not up and running. And I get it. It's a state agency, not a business. But it's been 5 years. 5 years since the program has been fully operational with training. The training has not been running since probably when I was at PodFest back in 2020. February or March of 2020, training stopped. And when you don't have training, you can't have blind folks operating their own businesses in the vending places along the highways, in the postal facilities, the blind bodegas in the different office buildings, the IRS and the various Social Security Administration. Now, some of those businesses aren't viable anymore because most of the agencies don't require in-office work, maybe 1 day a week. That's not enough to sustain a business that's located in the building. And that's been an issue for a lot of the vendors, a lot of the blind vendors. So Dawn Sokol, episode 120, Lynn Heitz, and her presidential report, episode 119. Link will be down in the show notes. So check those out. And you can also get a good feel, especially with Dawn Sokol's presentation, you get a good feel of what it's like to be at the general sessions at an NFB convention, state convention. You get to interact with the folks from these different agencies and companies, and it just makes it a very good situation where you can get your questions answered. You don't have to wait on the phone, wait for a call back. The person's right there in front of you. So, and Dawn was great to stick around. She took questions even after her presentation was over. She sat in the room and met with folks. So again, kudos to her for that. Now, I should say Erie is her hometown. So she didn't travel far to get to the convention, not like us on the bus. And I will mention one other episode. Occasionally, I am on That Real Blind Tech Show. It's not as good when I'm on it, but it's still pretty funny. I am on the most recent episode, and the most recent episode that is probably about to drop. So check those out. I'll put the link in the show notes. I don't remember. I think it's episode 169, and the new one coming out will be 170. We start off with a very non-technical story to get some laughs, and it is hysterical. Then we get into the tech from CES and from wanting to know what makes things accessible. Accessibility does not make things accessible. We talk about that. Talk about a few other things. So I'll put the link in the show notes. I know that you can get to all of the episodes, even the ones I'm not on, which again are funnier when it's the normal crew. But I sat in for Allison in this episode. Sometimes I sit in for Ed, sometimes Janine. Sometimes I'm just in there for somebody. And I like to do it, though. Don't get me wrong. It's just funnier when I'm not on it. But I do have my own theme music, so check that out too. There is a link to all of the That Real Blind Tech Show episodes by going to iCantCU.com/TRBTS. That Real Blind Tech Show. Okay, got it? TRTBS. Nope, TRBTS. That's it. I really do appreciate you joining me for this episode. Remember, show notes are available over on the website, which is still on the old server, still with the old website from, I guess, since I started the podcast 6 years ago. iCantCU.com/278 for the show notes. Again, that's iCantCU.com/278, numerically speaking. And remember, I can't see you sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 characters long. iCantCU.com/278. And again, I use those capitals because when somebody's using a screen reader and it's all lowercase, it sounds like iCantCU. But when you capitalize those C's and the U, it says I can't see you. And again, I'm saying I can't see you. Please reach out to me. You can leave a voicemail, 646-926-6350. You've got up to 3 minutes. Please leave your name and town if you do leave a voicemail. I would love to hear from you. Again, 646-926-6350. You can also reach me via email, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com. Of course, you can always reach out to me on the socials at David Benge on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, which I probably will not use anymore. You can reach me there at David Benge, though. And LinkedIn, that's another place that I post most of I post all of the episodes of this show and of White Canes Connect there. I guess I should talk to Brian. Maybe we should put the episodes of That Real Blind Tech Show there. But check out That Real Blind Tech Show. Very funny, very informative. If you've got sight, you're going to just listen for the humor. If you don't have sight, it's very informative. I really do appreciate you joining me for this episode. Thank you so much. Be well, stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the iCantCU podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.